Stars in my online education world. A chronological directory of open and online educators I first encountered in the 1980s. By Morten Flate Paulsen. An interview with Morten Flate Paulsen conducted on April 30th, 2024 by Norine Wark.
Thank you for agreeing to do this interview with me, Morten. It's an honor to be with you here today. Before we begin, I just wanted to make a comment about the image you chose as your backdrop for this interview. It's very interesting. Is this a Munch painting?
Yes, it is Edvard Munch's monumental painting History, which actually is the centerpiece of art at the University of Oslo. Munch painted it in 1910 in the small town of Kragerø, where I am located just now. The painting, which shows an old man telling his story to a young boy, provides me with two feelings. First, as a young boy who learned a lot from all the stars in my online education world. Then, as an old man, which I am, who wanted to pass on some of my history to younger generations.
Thank you. You obviously, it has a lot of meaning, not just for you, but for Oslo and for all of us as learners and educators. Thank you very much for explaining that to me. You recently released a chronology of your work entitled My Online Educational World, 1980 to 2020, which I understand is being very well received by people in our field and beyond. So congratulations on this monumental achievement, Morten.
Thank you. My online education world started as a therapeutic project during the pandemic, but it gradually became more ambitious because of the positive feedback I received as I posted, I guess, more than 300 anecdotes in my blog. Now I'm writing 4 books based on these anecdotes, 1 book per decade of my career.
Who did you write this for?
Well, actually, I hope to reach a quite broad audience of people who are interested in technology and education. So I decided to substitute the traditional dull academic style with a much more personal narrative and write a year-by-year chronology of my work experiences, but also sprinkle it with politics, technology, and culture that defined the zeitgeist of each year.
So a little bit more about this new set of books. Can you tell me something about this new series?
Well, I realized that an index of people in my anecdotes would include several hundred people. Some of them had a substantial impact on me and my online educational world. So I started to copy, to search and paste paragraphs about people from the first decade of my anecdotes. And then I realized that I could develop this into an interesting chronological directory of people who had most influence on my work. They were the stars I navigated after in my work. It became my personal tale of people who have been important for my career. It unfolds as a chronological narrative, illustrating how these individuals influenced my professional growth and shaped the various stages of my work in online education.
And so this would be the reason for your overarching title, Stars in My Online Education World, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So how many books do you foresee being in the collection, and what will each one focus upon?
Well, I plan to publish 4, I call them star books, 1 per decade, and they will cover people I first encountered in that specific decade. So starting with the 1980s and maybe compiled all of these 4 books into one larger publication sometime in the future, if I have time and energy to do that.
Well, that would be great if you could. So what prompted you to write them?
Well, as I wrote the 300 and maybe 400 anecdotes in my online education world, it gradually dawned on me how much all the good people I encountered meant to me. So I decided to write a tribute to the stars that were important to me. It turned out to be many more than I initially expected. And so far, I have identified around 150 people I would like to salute.
Thank you. Switching gears a little bit, could you please tell us a bit more about the first book in your series, a chronological directory of open and online educators first encountered in the 1980s?
Well, it started out as an alphabetical directory of pioneers, but I soon realized that I was heavily influenced by ICT pioneers, and I met many experts in traditional distance education and open universities, and I found role models and was introduced to leaders in the field, and I realized that I could learn from them all, and I tried to learn a lot.
So what happened then?
Well, when I had written this alphabetical directory of my first 50 stars, it occurred to me that it would be much more interesting if I presented this as a chronological story and also found and included contemporary photos of these people. And I found a lot of funny pictures.
Yes, you did. In this book, your journey appears to begin before and during your time as a student in the field of distance education. So this prompts me to ask you 4 questions. First, when did you initially become interested in distance education?
I was primarily interested in the development and use of microcomputers. I taught ICT courses at a private college owned by NKI in Norway, a company that primarily was known as a correspondence school. So I had easy access to people with experience in the field of both ICT and distance education. I especially appreciated the contact with Torstein Rekkedal and the people in his research and development department.
Thank you. So related to this, who or what sparked your interest in this field?
Well, when I bought a modem in 1985, I saw that a new world opened up to me, and I realized that I could use technology to revolutionize correspondence education. And I was privileged because I knew both distance education and technology to use online.
So what have been some of the advances in distance education that you've either observed or been involved in during the 1980s?
The 80s totally transformed our perception of distance education. The major driver of the development was new technology, PCs, modems, and learning management systems. In retrospect, that was low capacity technology without graphic and color interfaces.
So just sort of to sum up these set of questions, I was wondering, what was your impression of the field at that time?
Well, in the 1980s, distance education was synonymous with either correspondence courses or educational radio or television. But the 1980s was also the dawn of the online education area.
Mm-hmm.
I was really fascinated by the genuine wish to provide access to education via modern technology.
Your Stars of the 1980s book is also peppered with personal accounts and anecdotes. I was just wondering, who are some of these stars and why did you choose to include them?
Well, I have written personal stories about my encounters with 54 people who were important to me and how they influenced my work in the 1980s. They basically represent three key groups.
So, which three groups are you thinking of?
Well, first, the distance education experts, which includes pioneers like the Swedish Börje Holmberg, Michael Moore from Penn State University, Tony Bates, who were at the forefront of developing and advancing distance education methods and technologies. Their expertise enabled more accessible, flexible learning opportunities outside the traditional classrooms.
And so, who were the second group?
Well, they were ICT people,
Mm.
innovators in information and communication technology, such as Murray Turf, Jakob Palme. Both of them developed learning management systems or computer conferencing systems. And also people like Bill Gates, who kind of developed new microcomputer software technologies. They spearheaded the technological advancements that made online education possible, developing the systems and tools that transformed how people accessed and experienced learning.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And the third group?
Well, they were the real online education pioneers. They included, for example, Linda Harrison, Paul Levinson, Andrew Feenberg, and Robin Mason.
Mm-hmm.
These individuals were at the vanguard of developing and implementing the first online learning programs, experimenting with new pedagogical approaches, and advocating for the potential of technology-enabled education.
Mm-hmm. So, very interesting groups. Um, so, what are some of your fondest moments with stars in this book? For example, from the early days at the NKI online college.
Oh, there are so many fun moments, but from my pioneering time at NKI, I have really fond memories of working with Björn Mobeck, with Torstein Rekkedal and Erling S. Andersen, who all were important for the establishment of the NKI online college in the second half of the 1980s. Well, I still feel proud that we were able to develop a learning management system and offer a successful 10 course program to online students. And I probably was Europe's first online teachers when I taught these students in 1987.
That's quite an accomplishment, Morten. Um, and your first publications?
Well, I have written hundreds of articles, reports, and books about online education over the years, but it was something special with the first article I got published in English. I still remember the excitement I felt in 1987 when Sylvia Sharp published my first article in an American journal. I remember that the article was titled in search of a virtual school. And her journal was named Technological Horizons in Education. And that was special to me.
I bet. I also read that you interviewed Bill Gates. Is that correct?
Yes, I did hear that Microsoft was going to be presented at a fair in Oslo, and I called Microsoft's Scandinavian office and said that I had heard that Bill Gates was going to be there and asked if I could make an half-hour television interview with him as a part of our online course, Introduction to Computer Science. And to my excitement, they said yes. So I have made a half-hour television interview with Bill Gates, who was one of my favorites at that time.
And there is a link in your book to that interview, correct?
Yes.
Right on. Oh, that's good to hear. Just moving on a bit now, I wanted to ask you, why have you chosen to offer this series of books as free online resources?
Well, open educational resources and open publications have been more and more popular. And my goal is to reach out to as many potential readers as possible. So I decided to provide them for free as open access books. This means that anybody can download them and share them further and even build on them if they would like to. And it's been quite nice to see how that actually is working out. So I think that's the right choice for me.
Okay, good. Now that we've been talking about these books, I want to ask you, where can readers find this book and the future books in your series?
Well, I started to make them available through my blog and in my social media channels. I informed about them, and then I have uploaded them to ResearchGate and Academia, and also to some European repositories. And I will try to find other avenues to share them as well. And of course, everyone is free to share them in their own blogs or wherever they like, since they're open access books.
Well, thank you on behalf of everyone for doing that. And we'll make sure to include the links at the end of this video as well, Morten. Is there anything else you'd like to share about a chronological directory of open and online educators I first encountered in the 1980s?
Well, first of all, it has been a really exciting and pleasant experience to reconnect with many of the stars from the 1980s. Some of them I do have contact with quite frequently now. Others I haven't met or talked with for years. But it has been really interesting to connect with them through video sessions, LinkedIn communication, Facebook exchanges, and email communication. And I have asked them to jog my memories and shared early drafts of what I write about people. And I've got a lot of feedback, which has been really nice actually to go down the memory lane with some of these pioneers in the field. But I must also say that I have found more obituaries than I was aware of, which of course is a little bit sad in this. But of course, some of these people were much older than I when I started.
Yeah. Are there any other personal insights you would like to share?
Yes, it has been one of the most interesting writing projects I've been involved with, because it has been so interactive. I have continuously written and shared these anecdotes, which now are maybe close to 400, and I shared them one by one as drafts and work in progress, and that kind of interactivity where people give feedback, say that I have something wrong or missed something or forgotten something. It's been a really interactive and enjoyable writing process where there are so many people who actually have contributed and given me feedback over a long period of time. I have continuously shared drafts and snippets in my blog and social media channels, and it feels like some sort of evolutionary publishing with a lot of release parties.
It sounds like a real social experience for you and for everyone else, a trip down memory lane. And
yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Once again, I'd like to thank you most kindly for discussing the stars of the 1980s and the future books in this series with me today. I wish you all the best with this series, as well as your other recent publications. I can't wait to read the rest of the books in the series when they become available, Morten. It was
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Norine. It's been really exciting to talk with you, and I enjoyed this interview and communicating with you. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly been a privilege for me, Morten, and it was a total pleasure on my part. Have a really good evening, and I look forward to seeing the interview when it's published.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Here is a photo lineup of the 54 stars in the book, Stars in My Online Education World 1980 to 1990. Get your free copy today from Morten's blog or through researchgate.net. Future books in this free series will also be available via Morten's blog site, www.nooa.no or researchgate.net. Other recent books by Morten Flate Paulsen belonging to his series, My Online Education World 1980 to 2020, are also available through his website or researchgate.net. This interview closes with a photo of Morten overlooking the town of Kragerø in Norway. We hope that you enjoyed this interview and encourage you to check out Morten's recent publications. Links to these publications, and a transcript of this interview, are added in the comment section below. You are welcome to contact Morten through his LinkedIn account. Thank you.